Super Rugby AU season is done, and congratulations to the Reds. They pick up a title, which is kind of a fitting, I don't know if it's an end, but it's a fitting moment in the redemption story with the Reds and Brad Thorne taking them when they were at a low. Him coming in from Queensland country, clearing out all the big names, bringing in his own guys, and this group of guys he's got together over the years has finally kind of paid off in the form of a Super Rugby AU title. It was not easy, and at times it was not pretty, man. The Brumbies made them really work for it. It went well into the clock being red before the Reds were able to get in front at the death. Crazy, crazy finish. Like, if you were going to watch this game, like it's the last 5 minutes, the last 10, that you kind of really want to be paying attention to. It was absolute madness, but we'll go through some of the events, some of the stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. It is after midnight here, so forgive me if I ramble a wee bit. But yeah, it's a bit of a contrast from the New Zealand game, and obviously we're going to find out once the Trans-Tasman thing gets underway how these teams compare. How are these guys going to go up against these guys? That remains to be seen. I honestly thought the Crusaders and Chiefs game, for the most part, was a better watch, but it had no drama at the end. Whereas this game had one of the best finishes you will ever see in any game. Which do you want to take? Don't know. But anyway, 3-0 early for the Reds. They get a penalty. But then the Brumbies really start turning the screws. They've got all the territory. They've got the lion's share of the possession. CO knocks it on cold at one point when they're just hammering on the Reds' door. It's a bit of a let-off, but they go right back down that Reds' end not long later, and they get their only try of the game through Tom Banks, and he's had a huge season in Super Rugby AU. I hope he continues that form on into Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. So the Brumbies go in front 7 points to 3. The Reds' scrum is probably the main thing you look at that first half of the Reds and go, that went well. Because, like I said, they didn't have that much ball. They didn't have that much territory, but their scrum was winning some big penalties. Tom Wright did kind of a wrestling move. I think was it on McCrate in defence. Kind of drove his head into the turf. It was only a penalty, but not a kind of move that you often see in rugby. 26 minutes, another big red scrum. Eventually, James O'Connor kicks another penalty to make it 6 points to 7. That's only after the loose head prop for Tuaika has gone really close, but he's just been held up. So they go back for a penalty anyway. So it's a 1 point ball game. But they concede points not long after with the Brumbies getting one in reply to make it a 4 point lead again, 10 points to 6. And then the Brumbies get another one before half time to make it 13-6. So 13-6. It kind of does show where the Brumbies were at in that first half. 63% possession, 72% territory. If you're a Reds fan, you may be thinking, that's actually not too bad. 13-6, we're still in it. Only 5 knock-ons in the first half. I guess they say only. It could be lower. Run meters 108 to 146. So again, relatively low, but the two defenses are all over each other. 94% tackle rate for the Reds, 90% for the Brumbies. Both phenomenal numbers. So maybe that's why that first half didn't look the easiest on the eye. It's because neither defensive set was really giving any quarter, or maybe the attacks weren't doing what they needed to unlock things. Second half, Pitaya goes into touch with a good kind of try attempt. Nick White slides it on him, but I think he was into touch before Nick White slid it on him anyway. Harry Wilson goes off with a pretty ugly looking HIA. Head clash with Rob Valtini, and he just went off looking like, he looked seasick, like he was just wobbly legs, like he'd been on a boat kind of thing. Not a good look at all. 47 minutes, James O'Connor hits the post with a penalty kick, which is a little bit troubling, seeing as how good he's been in Super Rugby AU this season. It was a little bit worrying to see maybe the occasion getting to him, but he still played all right. We saw in the New Zealand game, I don't mean to harp on about that one, but Damien McKenzie didn't seem to perform at his normal levels, and I was getting a little bit kind of deja vu with that feeling with James O'Connor when he hit that post, because it was a very kickable one. But he made no mistake a few minutes later with another penalty to make it 13 points to 9. Darcy Swain went on Fraser McRae at one point, a bit late. There was a bit of handbags between Salakai Loto and Swain. Kind of maybe got the the blood pumping a bit for both sides because there'd been not a heck of a lot of fluidity, I thought. And Valtini gets yellow carded on 60 minutes for a high shot on Jock Campbell. It's a bit of an ugly looking one, but they give him the yellow card. James O'Connor kicks a penalty during the yellow card to make it 13 points to 12. It's a 1 point game. And you think Reds have got the extra man, they got the home advantage, and I should have said it first up. The crowd was absolutely phenomenal. Big crowd. I know it's not sold out, but still really big crowd. Quite audible on the footage as well. So yeah, really, really sounded that they were getting into the game, especially at the death, but kind of hard not to. Standing room only, really. 69 minutes. The Brumbies actually really start to turn the screws despite the fact they got the man down and that ends up with a penalty. So it's 16-12 and the Reds are just not quite looking like they're going to get it done. They've had the man advantage. They've not capitalised on it. In fact, they've only managed to draw even with what the Brumbies have scored. They do come alive a little bit on 75. Fluke gets a big old line break. The Brumbies concede a penalty on defence. I'm thinking, do the Reds take 3 and try to finish it with another 3? Because they've not looked that much like scoring. But they opt, and this is where you really start watching the game, if you're going to go back and just watch a part of this game. They go for a scrum, and then that wins a penalty. They go for touch. From the touch, they go for a maul. The backs get in there. The Brumbies sack it. They pull it down right before the line. Ref says that's cynical. Yellow card to Swain, I think it was, for the Brumbies. So they go for another line out the Reds, and they muck it up. They absolutely muck it up. And it's brutal. They've gone through all this stage to do all this, to put all this pressure on the Brumbies, and they absolutely choked it. But then the Brumbies had their own choke moment right before full time where they couldn't win their own line out. McCrae pounced on it. The Reds went close. There was an on the field no try at one point, but they went back for a penalty. There's a second yellow card to the Brumbies, so it's 15-13. And the Reds, they tap, man. They tap. They go close. The crowd's on their feet. And then they get another penalty. They tap that one again. And Tupou just absolutely barrels. Like you're asking for Tupou to get it. Either spin it wide because you've got 2 extra guys. There's got to be space out there. Or just give it to Tupou, man. If there's a guy who's going to get over the advantage line, it's Taniela Tupou. He goes so close. It looks like maybe he's got it down. But before they can let the ref make a decision and risk maybe being held up and then the game being over, halfback gets it, spins it to James O'Connor. He goes over for the try. That's the game winner. They go ballistic, the Reds guys. Tries awarded. He even manages to kick the conversion. 19 points to 16. James O'Connor's had a hell of a season, so kind of fitting that he gets to cap it off. And it was Tupou that went close. 2 of the key guys for the Reds. The final bit of that game is absolutely, as I said, the crowd were on their feet. Now, the rest of the game may not have been quite that easy on the eye at times, but the finish is undeniably phenomenal. The match finishes with 237 to 215 in terms of the run meters, so a bit on the low side. Possession 48-52, territory 49-51, so the Reds managed to kind of bring it back to almost even with that second half performance. Turnovers conceded is 9-8, so actually not hugely high, but the Reds line out was 78%. Pretty poor. Brumbies were at 92. Both sides still tackled in the 90s, so there's only 2 tries in the game, so that kind of makes sense. Penalties conceded if you're a Brumbies fan. 8 for the Reds, 20 for the Brumbies. I mean, I know some of them were at scrum time, but man, 3 yellow cards. It's pretty hairy. Some Brumbies fans, I'm sure, will be asking questions about that when the penalty count is that lopsided, but I have to go back and watch it to see how they were actually awarded. But take nothing away from the Red side, man. They still had to keep fighting for it. And to the Brumbies for fighting for as long as they did, man. Fluke manages to finish with a clean break, 3 defenders beaten, 42 run meters, in a day where offensive stats were kind of hard to come by. He's one of the more outstanding guys, especially with that clean break at the death. Rory Scott has 10 from 10 tackles for the Brumbies. There were a couple other guys. I think Valtini had 10 tackles, but he might have missed one. Got the yellow card as well, but man, crazy stuff. I've really enjoyed Super Rugby AU this season. I think it's been a great competition. I think it's been an improvement from last year. The Forces storyline has been a great one. The battle between the Reds and the Brumbies has always been so close, and it continues to be really close. Their games are always, just really neck and neck. I hope these teams do well in Trans-Tasman. I mean, not just them. I hope the Tars can bounce back a bit as well, because they've been a bit poor. But it's all about the Reds today and their storied comeback with Brad Thorne. He'll be pretty chuffed. And I think McCrake got man of the match. He's been phenomenal this season as well. But anyway, I'm going to go to bed. It is almost 12:30 at morning. Anyway, you guys take care. Enjoy. Congratulations to the Reds again. Commiserations to the Brumbies. They went so close, but just couldn't quite get it done. Anyway, you guys take care. Talk to you guys soon. See you later. Bye.